Welcome to this episode on data visualization, part of a series of short films supporting courses I teach in data science and artificial intelligence. You can find more by following me on LinkedIn or as @Binocularity on Twitter. Thank you for watching. Hi, welcome to the session on categorical data. This section we're going to look at what categorical data is. We're going to look at the types of visuals that you can use for this, primarily the bar chart here, and more importantly look at the details of the PowerBI user interface, how PowerBI aggregates data. It's important to understand the defaults and the options here because visuals by default do not always use the aggregation that you think they would use. We're going to look at sorting data in visuals, filtering data, and how to visually format the page and the visualization itself. So one of the questions that's very common for people bringing data to you is, what's the message in my data? They don't understand necessarily what the data will tell them or what questions they can ask about the data, and they certainly don't necessarily understand what decisions or actions they might be able to take from it. So in exploratory data visualization, you have this process which helps understand the data and the message in the data by looking at visual representations of it. You'll also come across other terms in books, Stephen Few's book, for example, about signal. How do you separate the signal in the data, the meaningful part of the data, from the noise? And we'll also come on later in the course to understand a story and what story about data might mean. How do you tell a story with data? What's the meaning of a story in a data set? So what do we mean by categorical data? Very often data is organized into categories which are really labels, alphanumeric labels. Here, a type of coffee might be a label for certain producers' coffee to be sorted into different types. Travel to work area, we've seen Barwick, Newcastle, Gateshead. We might be interested in geographical labels, or, and confusingly, categories can be numbers. So here the SIC, Standard Industrial Classification Code, is a number, but it doesn't have a numerical meaning. You can't add these together. They just are a label for a type of industry. A design industry or a museum industry. So it usually makes sense to think even as the numerical labels of categories as text values that you can count, but it doesn't make any particular sense to add them together. You don't go to some meaningful new category by adding together standard industrial classification codes. We're going to read in this data file, Northeast Company Data version 0. So I'll switch now to the PowerBI view and we'll get that data. There's different versions of this spreadsheet. You may have table and a sheet in here. Select the sheet and click load. So on the right, you'll see the labels, the column headers from the spreadsheet turned into fields that we can use to visualize with. And they've got different types. The little numerical symbol there indicates whether PowerBI has decided it's a numerical field or alphanumeric field. And the sum suggests that if it's a numerical field, that PowerBI can add and take away from it. Okay, so we're going to use clustered. I'm going to use a clustered bar chart, which in my PowerBI is third along the top row. And we've seen this before. And we want to select a set of field names for the rows, and we're going to use the main SIC4 name for this. So the main axis is SIC4 name. This is the Standard Industrial Classification Code version 4. Name of a field of industry in the UK. And then on the values, we're going to select company ID. Now, we're not interested in company ID and adding company IDs together, but we're interested in number of companies. And by default, in this case, PowerBI has done, in fact, what we wanted to do is counted the number of companies in different sectors. So you'll see here the sectors and the count along here, and we can check how it's creating these bars by looking at the values section, clicking on this little down arrow, and it'll tell you a range of possible aggregation techniques it uses. It can add together the numbers, but for SIC4 codes it doesn't make any sense. It can average, minimum, maximum. You can count the distinct numbers or do a count of them. In fact, in our case, distinct is the right thing to do, but as all the company IDs are distinct, it won't make any difference to the visual. Now, the other thing you might notice, it's got a row called null. This is companies that are not classified on an SIC4 scheme. We could keep that, maybe we could call it other. In fact, what we're going to do is filter it out. Go to this little arrow in the SIC4 name in the filters panel, click select all, so we're going to keep all except deselect null. And as soon as I do that, you'll see that that row is removed from here, so those companies aren't counted. So there we go, we've got a bar chart of companies. We've filtered out nulls. Now the question is, have we sorted it the way we want? Well, by default, PowerBI's sorted data. If you click on this tiny little 3 dots for this visual, so you click on the visual, click on the 3 dots, you can sort by descending or in ascending order of the dependent variable, the count of companies, and you can choose which variable to sort by. So if we sort by SIC4 name, we'd have it sorted alphanumerically by the label in the axis, but in this case we want to sort by count of companies. So you can see at the bottom the biggest sector. Now, how do we format a visualization? So we'll just go through some simple formatting. If we click off of the visualization itself on the background, then we have the option to format it by clicking on the paint roller icon. And I'm not going to do a lot here, but you can change this basic size of a page, the ratios, or set it in pixels. We'll change the background color. So you can select on color, you can choose pale red. And here's an interesting thing. We've chosen that and nothing's happened. By default, sometimes PowerBI chooses to use transparency, sometimes opacity. And by default, it's set the background color to be 100% transparent. So to see it, we have to change the transparency. And I'll set it to 0. If we click on the visual, and we also click on the paint roller brush icon, you can actually do very similar things here for the visual and from the background for the page. Now we can look at the data itself, the data colors. By default, the data is all given the same color. So let's choose a new version, a new color for this, which is going to be gray. And then supposing we want to highlight one of the sectors, and in this case we'll try and highlight the IT sector. If you click on show all, it will show all of the colors, and then you can select, and then you can select one to highlight. Let's see, let's go for a blue. We have red in the data, we have visualized the categories and chosen the aggregation and chosen the sorting for those categories, so that we've got data and where the message in this data is that the biggest sector by count of companies in the northeast of England is IT and software companies. Okay, so we've seen how to visualize some simple categorical data, how to filter the data, how to sort the data, how to check the aggregation is correct, and how to visually format the visualization and the page the visualization is on. Bar charts are a good solution when there's a limited number of categories, but of course many more categories and the bars start to become invisible, as do the labels on them. Okay, thanks for now.